So I posted a TikTok a few days ago and wow, some people had a lot to say. The video was just a funny educational skit explaining the basics of supply and demand in the housing market, showing how in the long term, owning has always beaten renting as a better financial strategy. Again, emphasis on the long term. And yeah, there's a ton of rent versus buy videos out there already, but I wanted to take a different approach. What sparked the idea was this headline that I came across: Gen Z Canadians skip saving for a down payment and splurge on travel. And honestly, I get it. Traveling is exciting, it's freedom, it's stories you'll tell for life, and buying a home feels like a prison sentence. I mean, debt, maintenance, property taxes, stress. So yeah, even as a realtor, I get it. But the part nobody's talking about in this article is the freedom you're buying today might actually be costing you a lot more than you think. So let's break that down in this video. Even just 10 years ago, owning a home was the ultimate milestone. It meant stability, success. It screams, you've made it. It was the North American dream. You're told, go to school, get a job, buy a house, and retire comfortably. But that model's starting to look outdated. Tuition's up, living costs are up, and home prices are out of reach for many. And for younger Canadians, the new status symbol seems to have changed. It's not home ownership anymore, it's travel. FP Canada found that 43% of young Canadians prioritize travel over home ownership. And honestly, when you look at the reasons, it makes sense. High home prices, high interest rates, increased cost of living, and some are saying paying a mortgage for 30 years doesn't seem like something that I want to put on my plate. This mindset isn't wrong. It's just a reaction to what seems to be a broken system. But it comes with a trade-off. People love saying that I can rent for half of what it costs to buy. No, you can't, at least not in the long term, because you're not seeing the full picture. If that were true, that you could rent for half of what it costs to buy in the long term, then nobody would be buying rental properties. Nobody would even be buying houses. Because the moment that everyone wakes up and realizes that renting is better, what do you think happens to rent prices? They would skyrocket. So it may be true in the short term that it costs you much less to rent and you profited more by investing the difference. However, there is a big myth here, and that is that owning a home equals guaranteed wealth. It doesn't. It just forces you to build it. Yes, you're locked into payments, but those payments are building equity. It's discipline disguised as debt. Homeownership won't make you rich overnight, and there are many costs associated: interest, taxes, repairs, insurance. But there are also some real advantages to owning: stability, customization, access to equity, and long-term growth. Let's actually run the numbers between renting and buying. I'll use Ottawa as an example since it's one of my main markets and we have a fairly good sample size to work with as opposed to smaller cities. The average home price in Ottawa for 2025 was $708,419. Now, a typical buying scenario for this type of home would be a down payment of $45,841.90, which is 5% on the first $500K and 10% on the portion above $500K. We'll put this at a 3.79% rate, which is a standard rate for when I'm recording this video in January 2026, which is also pretty consistent with the historic average. Your mortgage on 25-year amortization, the payment on a 25-year amortization becomes $3,410.28, and on a 30-year amortization, it becomes $3,072.42 a month. And for the renting scenario, well, the average single family rent in Ottawa for 2025 is $2,790 a month. Now, in both cases, you will be paying your own utilities, so we'll just call that even, but the homeowner does have extra costs. Property taxes, which is about $416.67 a month, or roughly $5,000 a year. Now, remember, assessed value does not equal market value, and assessments are often outdated. Maintenance, and the guideline 1% per year comes down to $583.33 a month, and the insurance average was $120 a month. We'll even skip tenant insurance for the renter in this calculation. So the total cost to own at the 25-year amortization is $43.30.28 a month, and at the 30-year it is $41.92.42 a month. That means that the renter keeps at the 25-year amortization $1740.28, and at the 30-year $1402.42. So in this video, we're going to use the 25-year comparison since that's the standard mortgage rate, and most people do actually pay their mortgage off in those 25 years. Even though the 30-year amortization is an option, you still have to qualify for the 25-year payment. So if you can qualify for it, then you can afford it. You're just choosing not to by going 30 years. Plus, using the 25-year comparison actually gives the renter a bigger monthly amount to invest. So let's run through the scenario. If the renter invests that $1740.28 a month consistently, consistently and earns 9% annual returns, assuming the investments are well managed and not eaten up by high fees. We'll also adjust for a 1.9% difference in rising rent costs and increasing home ownership costs. That means the renter's available investment will decrease by 1.9% per year. Because remember, your rent payment is almost guaranteed to go up. Your mortgage payment is not. And before anybody mentions that, well, the renter's income will go up too, sure, but so will the homeowners. So it balances out. Then after 25 years, the renter's investment will reach about 1.43 million. That's pretty solid. But remember, that assumes perfect discipline. That means no trips, no impulse spending, and no skipping any payments. Now let's be real. People who rent don't do that. They spend, they travel, they enjoy life. And that's completely fine, but it affects the math tremendously. Remember, 43% of Gen Z are already prioritizing travel over homeownership, and that seems to be very trendy lately. So let's factor that in. So the average cost of a trip, including all expenses, is $19.91 USD or about $27.65 Canadian dollars per year, converting to just over $230 a month. So we will subtract that amount from the renter's monthly investment contributions. We also have to adjust those travel costs by 2% inflation per year, which is the Bank of Canada's target rate. After those adjustments, the renter's 25-year future value now drops to $1.11 million. It's still pretty good, but that travel lifestyle has now cost you $320,000 in long-term growth. It didn't even cost anywhere near $320,000 to go on those 25 trips, but that's the opportunity cost. And sure, I agree, the experiences, the memories, the stories, they're all priceless, but this is a finance video and that's the trade-off. So now let's look at the homeowner. So they bought at the market average of $708,419, and over the past 25 years, Canadian home prices grew about 3.2% per year above inflation. So if that trend were to continue, 3.2% plus the 2% target inflation rate, that same home would be worth over $2.5 million after 25 years. Now, disclaimer, I don't think it'll continue increasing at that rate, but I also don't think it would be drastically far off. To stay extremely conservative with my homeowner calculations, I will remove 2.2% of growth entirely from the homeowner calculation. That means that we're only assuming a 1% annual increase above inflation instead of the historical 3.2. Even then, both the renter and the homeowner end up in roughly the same dollar range. So 1.11 million for the traveling renter, 1.43 million for the renter who invests the difference, and 1.48 million for the homeowner using an extremely conservative estimate. So now, after 25 years, a few key differences start to appear. First, the homeowner has no more mortgage payment. They own it outright, and the renter is still paying rent forever. The homeowner could now even choose to invest their disposable income, adding even more to their advantage. Secondly, and this one really hurts the renting argument in Canada, and that's taxes. See, in Canada, the homeowner can sell that property, and because it's their principal residence, they pay no capital gains tax. The renter's investments, on the other hand, taxed. If you're truly investing the full difference month after month, you will exceed your TFSA limit, meaning that you will have to rely on other accounts. Now, depending on what you invest in and how it's structured, a significant portion of these profits could end up going straight to the CRA. And finally, discipline. On paper, renting and investing the difference looks great, but in reality, it's rarely done correctly. It's so easy to skip one investment contribution. Meanwhile, the homeowner is forced to stay consistent. It's also very easy for renters to panic during market crashes. Their investments are highly liquid. It only takes a few seconds to sell or change an investment strategy. That flexibility can be a good thing, could also be a terrible one, because studies have shown that missing just the 10 best days in the market can cut your 30-year return in half. And when you combine that with what BMO found, that only 1/3 of Canadians say they actually understand investing, and that 67% don't even know the difference between a TFSA and an RRSP, it makes it really tough for the average renter to invest the difference in hopes to beat the housing market. So let me be clear, okay? No, you don't need to own a home in order to build wealth. Renting and investing the difference, if you actually stick to it and you know what you're doing, can actually make you a lot of money. But here's the part I really don't like. People online make it seem like renting and investing the difference automatically will make you a millionaire, while it very rarely works like that in real life. Homeownership is exactly like taking the safe route. It forces you to stay disciplined. But if you're renting and not investing the difference or not investing at all, what's the long-term plan? Do you have one? Quite frankly, do you know what you'll be doing at retirement? Do you want to continue working later on in life? Some people do, and that's fine. I just want you to be aware of reality. If I had to pick a winner between the two, between homeownership and renting and investing the difference, it really comes down to your lifestyle. If you know you'll be living roughly where you are now, buying makes sense. But if you don't even know where you're going to be in the next 5 years, then renting and investing the difference sounds like a great plan. If this video helped open your eyes, make sure you hit the like button. It helps more people find these types of videos. And if you're serious about building real wealth in Canada, then make sure you hit the subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what I have planned next for this channel. With that, thanks for watching. Until next time.